The movie begins with a man named Paul who has just finished World War II and wants to see his life. We learn from his conversation with his friend that Paul has been married to them for 4 years, almost since the beginning of the war, and that his wife is very affectionate, and that he also wrote her a letter every day for the past 4 years. Anyway, Paul goes to the place where the wives of soldiers who come back from the war wait. He finds all the soldiers, his friends and their wives, except for him. His wife didn't come to him. So Paul the young man followed him. After that, he went to his house. He opened the door, and suddenly he found his wife sitting in the house normally. But his wife didn't know that it was the day her husband was coming back. And that's why, because she didn't decide on his letters in the first place, but she told Paul that she kept them. So Paul was upset because he wrote her letters every day, and she wasn't expressive at all. In addition, she didn't show the letters that he sent her. So his wife said, "I don't want you to be upset. And by the way, if he knows that you are living, from during the letters that you send every day, as long as you send a letter, yes, then you are alive." And he asked him after that, "What are you going to do? What are you going to work for, Paul? Are you going to sell chocolate like you used to sell chocolate before you joined the army?" Paul said, "No, I don't want to continue with this chocolate thing. I'm alive," meaning that it is valid. Paul has her own way. He said, "It means a map. You're taking care of yourself." And the next day in the morning, Paul is shocked. He takes a bag and decides to travel to another city to work there. He leaves his wife sleeping and walks. He goes to take the train to travel to the other city. As soon as he was walking in the middle of the train car, he finds a woman in the middle of the track who doesn't know how to put her bag. Paul said to her, "Let me help you so we can count and finish." But now she doesn't know whether the train has swerved once or what. Paul falls on this woman, and what I hear, by the way, Victoria, most of her, when Victoria's invaded, not Victoria's part, she got up and said to him, "Don't worry, now Paul is going to come back." Like this, "Upstairs, Victoria, may God bless you. It's important that when the two of them fall on each other, remember their way, right? They're all switched." Paul then goes to the bathroom to take off his suit, but Victoria's production was too much, which forced Paul to change his clothes and wear a completely different suit. He then continued his way and got off the train, then he got on a bus. Who is Victoria on the bus? Paul saw her as soon as she saw him, happy, but he sat in another seat far away from her in case she goes back on him again. When Victoria saw him, she apologized for going back on him and asked him later, "What made you get on the bus?" Paul told him, "No, I had a reservation for a city, but I found another one here. That's what made me get off." And I said, "I'll continue on the bus." At that moment, Victoria realized that her ticket had been switched with Paul's ticket, and she went with Tedraglo for the second time. Paul told her, "Don't worry, everything was all right." I swear they were snitches on the bus. 2 more people get on the track. They see Victoria sitting alone like this, so they come and sit next to her, and they sit on her. So I said to Victoria, would you please sit down a few steps and move away from me?" But the two of them were very rude, and they were bumping into her. So Paul asked them to move away from her and sit a few steps, or at least to change their seats. The two of them refused and started a fight with Paul. Paul said, "Good evening, both of them," but she did and told them, "I don't want to worry here. Whoever speaks will get out." Yes, they got out behind the bus. Important. The 3 of them get out behind the bus, and the bus was moving. Victoria was looking at Paul. Anyway, Paul continues on his way and walks. And after walking for a while, he's surprised by Vicky sitting on the side of the road on their toothy mustache. Paul said to her, "What is this? Did they kick you out of the bus too?" Vicky said to him, "No, she got off like this in her place and her workers were crying." Paul said to her, "What's the matter with you? What's the story?" Vicky told him her story. She told him that she loved someone and they entered into a relationship and that she's now pregnant, but the person she loves didn't know that she was pregnant, so he left her and ran away. And that she's from a very conservative family and her father didn't know that she was pregnant and is not married. So when Paul heard her story, his heart pounded like chivalry, and he said to her, "What do you want me to tell you? I will help you, and we will make a play that I am your husband, and I will spend a day with you at home, and then I will leave, and sometimes you will tell him that there is a disagreement between us, and then we will leave each other." But Vicky did not want to involve Paul in something that he was to blame for because she is my child, meaning that she caused him a lot of problems. But Paul insisted on helping her, and they both left after that to go to her father's house. They were walking. Victoria asked them, "What do you do in your life?" Paul told him that he just returned from the war and that he's married and that he also, as long as he was in the war period, he dreamed of having a son and working a good job that would bring him good money and live a quiet life. He also told him that he used to send a letter to his wife every day, and she would not reply to him except, "Where? Where?" And Victoria, as soon as she knew that he used to send a letter to his wife every day, realized immediately that this was Paul. She went to tell them, "You're very kind, Paul." He said yes. She said, "Nice." And after that, they continued to get closer until they arrived at her father's farm. He mentioned that Vicky's father had a vineyard. Paul said to me, "Vicky, we forgot something important. I want to tell you what. Catch me quickly and celebrate your 7th birthday, please." He went and took out the toy ring from the rings that she had put on the chocolates that he sells. He went and dressed her and dressed her. Suddenly they heard the sound of gunfire close to them. They asked him who was Vicky's father. He was honoring them. Anyway, her father, whose name is Alberto, as soon as he saw Paul, he said to her, "Who was this?" Victoria told him, "This is my husband." He said, "What is your husband?" And he raised his gun at him. But thank God he didn't finish him off. He went and served and went home. Professor Alberto entered the house and was very proud. He told his wife, Maria, Vicky's mother, that her daughter got married behind their backs and that she broke the agreement because Alberto was supposed to marry Vicky to her cousin. But at this time, we realized that the only one who is crazy about this matter is Alberto. But Vicky's mother, Vicky's grandfather, and Vicky's grandfather's wife were all happy. Alberto said that, "I'm sorry, guys, that she got married behind our backs." They all said, "No, congratulations, Vicky." They kissed her, and Alberto stood beside them, crying. Alberto asked his father, Pedro, and said to him, "The truth is, Haj Pedro, your granddaughter got married behind our backs and married this person we do not know." Pedro just simply said to Paul, "Welcome to the family." Of course, at this time, Alberto had it easier, and honestly, he had the right. I mean, how could his daughter come to him and tell him she was married? He then asked Paul, "What do you do for a living?" Paul told him, "I sell chocolate." Alberto said, "Chocolate? Oh, Black Rivers! Oh, Black Rivers! My daughter married a chocolate seller." Pedro then came to Paul and said to him, "Please, can I have your chocolate?" Paul told him, "Oh, come on, Abu Hamaya, the best chocolate for you." "Haj Pedro, we will go out for the chocolate." Alberto would take them, but Alberto will give them all a nervous look and leave them. So Pedro will eat the chocolate and tell Paul that it's chocolate and he was happy and did something, and that was what made Vicky happy and laughed too. Anyway, after that, all the women gather in the kitchen, and they were sitting there crying. He says to them, "Why does my father treat me like this? Why doesn't he hate me? Why doesn't he look at the things that help me and do them? Or at least let us do them?" Her grandmother and mother tell her that her father loves her very much, but his problem is that he doesn't know. "But Vicky, your father loves you." Vicky told him, "How does he love me? He wants to get over me? I've never seen a Mexican in my life. I have the right to get over whatever I want." But her mother at this time asked her, "Is this what your heart wants?" She meant Paul. Vicky mother to me, yes. Really, that this is what your heart wants. At that time, Vicky was silent for a while, and her mother told her, "Okay, don't worry about anything, and everything will be fine." They all started knocking to have dinner together. The dinner consisted of a soup. I don't know if it was an at soup or basara soup, but I'm not sure. But when Paul made the soup, he really liked it and said to me, "Tita, thank you very much, because Tita is the one who made this soup. We're very grateful, Tito Alberto." At that time, Paul told her that the history of this soup dates back to before the date of your country's independence declaration. Maria ordered him at that time, wanted to lighten the mood, and he asked Paul, "How did you take your tablet?" He started improvising, but his improvisation didn't go along at the time. The Vicky had traveled. For example, he started saying that he had met her at a time before Vicky had traveled. At that time, Vicky was still in the house. Quickly, Vicky will enter into the dialogue to fix the situation, but you can say that Alberto smelled like this, that there is a scent of a lie in the subject. At that time, Haj Badho was putting an abnormal amount of salt, so I ordered him to reduce the salt a little. "Your blood pressure, baby Badro," said, "Leave me alone. I love salt. My father lived 104 years and he put salt, and my grandfather lived 106 years and he put salt. Leave me alone." Anyway, Alberto still does not keep quiet, and he pricks Paul the other times. He says to him, "Paul, my son, since we know how you are, Talib," and of course he was saying this in a way, "what are your father and mother doing?" Paul told him, "They're not doing anything." So he said to him, "What do you mean? Where were you raised originally?" Paul told him, "In an orphanage." Alberto said, "What? An orphanage? You have no origin or lineage or even family roots. You know the one you're marrying her family roots, and where does it go? Up to 500 years ago. We know who our fathers and grandfathers are, and we have a family tree, but you are a man without a past, and it's clear that you also have no future." So Vicky said to us, "No one knows the future, Dad. How do you judge his future?" Alberto told her, "Everything is clear. Someone who works in chocolate, what will his future be like?" Paul said, at this time he is very tired of this talk, and left them with nothing. He stood up, but before he stood up, he thanked Vicky's grandmother very much for her drink, and then he went out. Vicky also stood up and went after her and apologized to me through her father with her and said to him, "Sorry, we will know that you're not to blame for all of this. You basically came with me to help me." So he said to her, No, there's nothing. By the way, I had a response to your father, but I did not go ahead and respond to him because your father is right in every word he said. It is natural that my father has a line on his daughter's future, so I am upset with him." So he said to her, "In any case, it's over. We have passed the stage, the whole difficult 8 hours. And in the morning, he goes out and then I go, and that's almost over." So Vicky takes him back home, and he goes to the room where they will sleep there. Aunt Maria was preparing the bed for them, and honestly, she was doing them work. So Nadia and Maria was telling Paul the story of this bed, suggesting that this bed was inherited from her mother, and that her mother was inherited from her grandmother. It's important. Aunt Maria tells Paul after that not to get upset with Alberto or his outbursts. And why is that? Because they are a traditional family, and they live their lives according to customs and traditions. And Vicky broke these customs and traditions and threw them to the wall. So it's natural for him to react like this. And she said to them after that, "I want you to love each other always." And she left them and went. And she goes after that, her husband, Alberto, said to her, "What? At first he wants to marry my daughter." And he was very upset. But Aunt Maria, with her sweet way, she was able to calm him down completely and made him stay with her. And she also convinced him to go and say good morning to them. Good, and reassure them. As they say, Aunt Maria, she has a cool style. On the other hand, Vicky was chatting a little with Paul and asked him if he liked selling chocolates. Paul told her, "Between him and you, no. And I was basically traveling, Annie, to find myself another job, but the things are still not clear in front of him." So at this time, Vicky thanks him for the second time and tells him that he was more than wonderful, Yenny, the same new professional circumstances. Anyway, she slept on the bed, and Paul slept on the floor. But suddenly, at this time, Alberto comes knocking on the door. Paul quickly gathers the mattress aside and jumps on the bed. But when Alberto enters, he notices the mattress next to the bed, so he knows that Paul was sleeping on the floor, but he doesn't speak and says to them, "Good night, and I hope you have a good night. God knows what will happen to you and the minds of those who gave you birth to you. And I will open the door and leave them and leave anyway." In other words, a few hours later, in the middle of the night, suddenly the bell in the place rings and suggests that this is an alarm because there's frost coming to their crops. And if this frost affects the crops, it will destroy them. So quickly they all gather and light a fire to warm the crops, and they all wear things that make them work like mattresses, which they are supposed to use to distribute heat to the crops. And Paul at this time wanted to help them and asked Alberto what to do. And Alberto said to him, "I will tell you what, will you be able to help? You won't be able to help. Shut up completely. I don't have time for you now." So Vicky said to Paul, "Come, I will teach you." And she taught him how to wear these wings and distribute heat to the crop. And here the first closeness between them happened. "Now don't get close anymore. We are in a bus, if you please. Mr. Paul, why are your wings, Alberto? If nothing happens, he will make you a torch." Anyway, this matter is settled and they save the crop. Then they all go back to sleep. And after a while, Paul tells Vicky that his turn is over and he's leaving to see his life. And he told him that this is the right time for him to leave because they're all asleep now. So Vicky told him, "You're right," but Vicky was upset that he left because almost like this, something started to happen between them both. Paul took his bag and left, but he went out to her, Pedro, in his face. Pedro said to him, "What is this? Where did you sleep, my son? Bring these bags in Rama. This one works for them," and told her, "Bring it back again," and took Paul because he walked with him. But he said to Paul, "What do you want me to do with the bag of chocolates?" Then he was picking out of one of the decorative rings in the chocolates. Paul said to him, "What is this ring? It looks like the one on Vicky's hand." Paul said to him, "Show me." Then he laughed. He said to him, "Do you believe me? I really didn't notice it looked like him." Danny left, and he didn't pay attention to the subject. He said to him, "All chocolate, Grandpa." But Pedro, you could say that he understood something better, but he was still very impressed with the chocolate. Anyway, after that, they continued on their way, and they walked, and Pedro told me that Paul planted this grove that they're walking in the middle of now is more than 400 years old. And that is because his great-great-great-grandfather came from Mexico with a branch in his pocket. And this branch and this carrot are called yabel, and they are the only family that has this kind of parrot. And he took Paul to show him the carrot carrots that his great-father brought with him from Mexico. They put these carrots in a place by themselves, and they take a branch from it from time to time. And Paul, he said to him, "You're now looking at our lives. These carrots are our foundation, Paul." And he also told him, "You are now, Paul, not an orphan. You have become one of our children, and these carrots are your carrots. You're just like us. In other words, Paul, you now have carrots." Paul, at that time, his family was happy for him. And after that, he told Badro that he would not be able to continue with them, and he had to leave because he had commitments. Badro told him, "Commitments? What commitments?" "Okay, and your commitments to your family? What are the circumstances, Paul?" Paul told him, "I wanted to go back, but really it won't work to come back." So at that time, Badro was very upset and said to Paul, "Do you really believe what Alberto said about you? You did it word for word, because you will go and not stay and will not commit to your family as well." He told him that Vicky is the one who will pay the price for your lack of commitment. So Paul said to him, "Okay, what do you want from me?" Badra told him, "Today is very important. You must stay because today is the day we grow the crop." Paul said, "So if I stay today, I will have fulfilled my commitment to my family?" Badra said, "Yes." Paul said, "Okay, I will stay." Badra said, "My dear, I'm like a bean. I'm telling you, is it possible for you to have chocolate?" "Well, I am. Thank you, Uncle Badro." In any case, Paul returns with Badra, and Vicky sees him very happy. Alberto said, "Do you have chocolate with you? Go swimming, my son. What do you have left?" Paul said, "The priority is the family at this time." Vicky looked at Paul with admiration. You could say that the phrase priority, his family liked it very much. The important thing is that Alberto is holding a small knife for Paul and telling his daughter to teach him how to harvest the grapes. It is better for him to cut himself. Here he spoils our harvest with his own blood. "Oh, protect me, O Lord, ungrateful Alberto. This is a genius, the man coming to help you. You are incensing." Anyway, Vicky teaches him how to harvest grapes. Paul is almost one of the people who learns quickly because he has a very small body. He continues to compete with Alberto in the harvest, and when Alberto became aware that Paul was competing with him in the harvest, the matter came up with him, so he kept competing with Paul in the harvest.
And they were the ones who were fighting each other until there was no vote. Teacher, Paul was the one who beat Alberto. And Vicky was a worker looking at them and laughing. The important thing was that they were going to blame the harvest. After that, they would throw something big like this into a large tray, and after that they would start composing and singing. And the woman went in to step on the grapes, and that was to turn it into the woman's loft. She sang, danced, and picked grapes. As for the men, she used to cover them, and they were all there. We were very happy, and now they went with Paul, the shoe, and the drink, and threw it away, so that he would be trampled on by the woman. My heart is with the people who will drink this stock later. Anyway, you can say that they brought Paul in to celebrate with Vicky, and you can also say that what happened brought Paul and Vicky very close together, because after that they came out with each other and feelings were flowing between the two of them. But Paul, at the right time, broke up, and he told Vicky that he is a married man and that he came here to help her, not to get into a romantic relationship with her. Vicky was understanding of all of this, but it was very clear that she started to love Paul and get attached to him. Paul told her that he himself wanted to be in a relationship with her, but he also told her that he is not free and that he is not able to get carried away with her just to spite her. God bless you, Paul. Please, everyone, give Paul a break. Anyway, Paul goes out and leaves her to walk. At that moment, he is surprised by Vicky's grandmother holding his suit to make her lose it. Paul said, "No, please, just give me the suit and I will go." But Vicky's grandmother refused, and she will get stupid like this, even the suit is in the barrel. At that moment, Paul noticed Vicky and found her like this, unable to stand, and her stomach hurt. He ran to her quickly to check on her, but Vicky at that time was upset and said to him, "Okay, your turn is over. You are not able to help me with anything else. Please, Paul, I want to go." "Okay, I can take responsibility for myself." And I left him and left her. Paul, no. Paul, he went after her too, because at that time her mood was not good. So he went after her in the fermentation factory and was hitting on her, but at that time Alberto was the one who responded to him. He said to him, "Either he is the one who brought you here or no." And he left. He said to him, "I'm telling you, just because you transgressed against me doesn't mean that anything from our land or our work is yours. Either no outside the family or no, sir. We found out that he was outside the family. You think of him almost every minute." Paul at that time said to him, "For the past 4 years, I expected the war. I was isolating myself from the whole world and from people. And that was because those 4 years were a time of war. But what is your excuse for isolating yourself from your daughter? Your daughter always offers you love and guidance, and all you offer her is cruelty and a very bad way of dealing with her. By the way, Alberto, your daughter is very kind and spreads love and doesn't take this lightly from you. All of this is because she loves you very much. And he also said that all his life he dreamed of love and dreamed of a family that would care for him, but God did not see him. 30, Alberto. That means you feel and appreciate the blessing that is with you. And at that time, Vicky was hearing all this talk. Paul said to Alberto, I am ready to die for anyone who loves me this way and cares for me this way. Alberto said, what are you saying all this on? You see the factory that you are in, and you see the land outside, and I'm doing all of this, yani it is for Vicky and her brother, and of course, yani I love them. Paul said, all of this is very nice. I wish you would express your love for them and tell them these words. And after that, he left them and walked away. He came out and took the jug from the barrel that was full of water and put it as it was in its bag. While he was about to walk, Pedro came out to him again and took him into a place like a small warehouse and said to him, come, sit, and let's drink some of it. And Pedro said to Paul, this woman, son, it is difficult for us to understand her. When you find that your wife is upset or angry, for example, stay away from her and leave her until she calms down completely. And after that, do not go and talk to her, but rather do a romantic move in an indirect way. Paul said to him, what should I do? Pedro said to him, then you are to wearing indigo. Learn, my son, listen. Pedro continued to sing him romantic Mexican songs and taught Paul a few words so that he could sing them. He then pushed him into the band, which was under Vicky's balcony. He said to him, sing. The band played for Paul. Paul started singing at that time. Vicky heard the song that Vicky was a little nervous. Pedro said to Paul, wait a little and be careful. The media says that she turned on the light. I compensated her. If she turned on the light, then she has fixed you. And Alberto said to Maria, at this time, Paul seems to really love her. What is this? Alberto started to soften up. But let's see what happens, man. Alberto, but Vicky made lunch because she did not like the lie of the meeting, which made Paul take his support and leave. And of course, at that time, he was very upset. But Paul, after walking a very long distance, at that time, Vicky lied. But Paul had already walked far, returning to how to wear his drawing and write some boss's letters to return to his wife. At the same time, on the other hand, Vicky confesses everything to her father and makes him understand that he has an act and that she loved someone while she was pregnant with his child. And this person made her stay with him and left her, and Paul did all of this because he was a gentleman. But Alberto did not forgive Paul because, from his point of view, Paul lied to him. In any case, on the other hand, Paul returns to his wife, and this time, his wife, as soon as she sees him, is really surprised by him, and this is because she wasn't the only one. And she told Paul at that time that their relationship with each other would never succeed because she saw that Paul is a romantic man, and his feelings are, they're a little surprising, and he doesn't work, but she is a practical sick, she loves money very much. That's what made her ask Paul for a divorce. Not only that, but she also prepared the divorce papers and put them on Paul's slippers and gave them to him for him to sign them. Paul took the papers and left. While he was walking in the street, his wife said to him, Paul, one up with you. You're fine. I wish you well. Paul said, I'm very fine. He was very happy. His wife was surprised. Who is he? He saw his wife cheating on him with someone else. She also asked for a divorce, and he left her and walked out very happy. She didn't know that she wasn't in Paul's heart at all, and that these circumstances were in his favor to get rid of her. Anyway, Paul writes some guillotines and returns to Vicky. There, when he returns to the farm, he finds Pedro sitting drunk. And this is, of course, because of Vicky's story. Anyway, Paul wakes him up and tells him that he's coming back because he wants to propose to Vicky and marry her. And the marriage will be official. But Alberto did not agree and told him to stay away from his daughter and leave from here. Paul said to him, but I love Vicky. Alberto said to him, you are married. You are a poor person. You are married. Paul told him that he divorced his wife and came out to divorce him. But Alberto still refused Paul categorically. At that time, Vicky could hear their screaming. Alberto was like this, and he grabbed the lantern that we wanted to hit Paul with it, but the lantern slipped from his hand and fell on the crops. The fire in the lantern caught on the crops, so all the crops caught on fire. Paul quickly ran to the crops to warm them up. Vicky went to Paul to help him, but the matter got out of control because after that the fire engulfed all of the crops and all the people on the farm tried to put out the fire. But unfortunately, all their efforts were in vain and the whole farm was burned and remained uprooted until the morning. At that time, all of them gathered and of course they were all upset because the farm was burned. And finally at that time, Alberto opens his heart to his daughter and says that he was very afraid of losing her. He was afraid of losing them all and that his family children are more important to him than anything else. And after that, he asked Vika to help him, to love and how to express his feelings. After that, he hugs her. At the same time, Pedro goes to Paul and says that all their branches were burned. The branches and root that we preserved for 500 years, he lost them on that night. So at that time, Paul leaves Pedro and goes to the place where the main branches that they came with all 500 years, he burned also. But at that time, Paul decided to remove this branch with his roots. And as it was, hello, Ellen went with him and said to him, what I'm telling you, why don't you make sure like this? Like if this branch was burnt on the inside or not. So Alberto and then took a knife and peeled it hand. He was surprised that the branch was still green from the inside, which means that it was not burned from the inside and that it is scheduled for being planted again for the beginning. In other words, they did not lose the branch that they came with 500 years ago. At this time, Alberto thanked Paul very much and said to
This land was allocated to you too. You, Paul. It has become part of the family. Not only that, but he also told Paul that he would plant the first branch of their new crop. So Paul told him, believe me, buddy, but I do not know how to plant. So Alberto said to Vicky, teach your husband how to plant, which means that he finally agreed to the marriage. And Paul at that time took the branch and went to Vicky and took out his toy chocolate ring, and he wore it for the second time for Vicky, but this time it was really not an act, in front of her father and Oliver. So they rushed at the time when he saw the urine and said to him, what? Don't move, man. Do anything. And he urinated in Vicky's mouth. And joy spread in the place in the middle of the burnt farm. Up to here, the story ends. I hope you like it, comment, and share it so that the video reaches more people. If this is the first time you hear me and I want to participate in the channel, then subscribe to the study so that I can send you a notification for every new video that I upload. I'm waiting for you, God willing, for the next video.